My parents stole my 100K college fund for my sister's house. My dad laughed at me and said, "You can't even afford a lawyer." I never thought I'd be telling this story, let alone to strangers on the internet. But here I am, 17 years old, typing this out, because I have no one else I can really talk to. It feels unreal, like a scene in a movie that you never expect to be the one living. But this is my life now. I guess I should start with my grandparents, my dad's parents. They were the kind of people who saved every penny, who valued hard work and family above everything else. We didn't see them often because they lived in another state, but whenever we visited, they were warm, generous, and so loving toward me. Even over the phone, they always made me feel like I mattered, like I was special. My grandfather passed away 3 years ago, and then last year I lost my grandmother too. After she died, their will was read. That's when everything started. They left my parents their house and savings. My sister Sarah got all of Grandma's jewelry, real heirlooms, pieces that could sell for tens of thousands. And me. They set up a college fund, a significant amount. $100,000. It was spelled out clearly in the will. This money was for my education only. Because I was under 18, my parents were to manage it until I was old enough to use it. At the time, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. It felt like my grandparents were still watching over me, making sure I had a chance even after they were gone. I trusted my parents to do the right thing. I mean, why wouldn't I? Who would ever imagine their parents could do something so cold? But looking back, maybe I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. They'd always favored Sarah. She's 8 years older than me, kindergarten teacher, engaged to Adam, a zookeeper. They're nice people, really. But they're not exactly making a lot of money. For the past year, they'd been talking nonstop about how buying a house was the smartest thing they could do. They'd been renting a tiny apartment, and I guess they were feeling the pressure to settle down. Meanwhile, I was working hard in school, getting good grades, preparing for college. But no matter what I did, I always came second to Sarah. Always. She was the golden child. Everything she did was praised: her art projects in school, her volunteer work, her engagement. Meanwhile, when I came home with an "A, good job, kid. Keep it up." That was about as much enthusiasm as I ever got. They weren't cruel. Not overtly. They never hit me, never screamed. It was more like indifference, like I was just kind of there, present but not precious. So when I brought up my college fund last month, I wasn't expecting anything strange. I had been applying to schools, filling out applications, and I was genuinely excited about the future for the first time in a long while. One evening, I asked if everything was good to go with the fund. Tuition deadlines were coming up soon. Their reaction, weird. My dad muttered, "Don't worry about it, we'll talk when the time comes." My mom added, "Just focus on your studies right now." It felt off, like they were dodging the question. At first I let it go. Maybe I was being paranoid. But a week passed and the feeling wouldn't leave me. I asked again, this time more directly. "I need to know the money's there. Applications are expensive. I have to plan." And that's when they told me. I remember it so vividly. My mom said like it was nothing. "We used the college money for Sarah. She and Adam are buying a house." I stared at her like she had grown a second head. Surely I'd misheard. What, she repeated it. Calm, unapologetic. My dad jumped in too. "Sarah needed it now. It wouldn't be fair for you to get a free ride when she had to take out loans." I lost it. I'm not proud of how I reacted, but I screamed. I asked them how they could do this to me. How they could steal money that wasn't theirs, money my grandparents had left for me. My mom rolled her eyes. "You'll figure it out. You can take a loan like everyone else." I threatened to sue them. "Yeah, I'm just a teenager, I don't have a lawyer." But I was desperate. You know what they did? They laughed. My dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "With what money? You can't even afford a lawyer." In that moment, I'd never felt so small, so humiliated, so betrayed. I just stood there, stunned. The full weight of it hit me. My parents had never really seen me. I was always the afterthought. But this was a whole new level. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I started thinking about everything. About how my grandparents had trusted them. About how they had no idea what it was really like in this house. And I wondered if they had known, would they have still trusted my parents with my future? The next morning, I made a decision. I was leaving. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. There wasn't much in my possession, just what I had saved from working part-time at the local store. Maybe enough to last me a few weeks if I stretched it thin. But I didn't care. At that point, a bench in the park sounded safer than sleeping under the same roof as the people who had stolen my future, without flinching. I packed a backpack with a few changes of clothes, my phone, a charger, and every bit of cash I had. Before leaving, I stood in the middle of my bedroom, just staring at the walls. I'd spent so many hours here dreaming about my future, working hard for my grades, planning for college. And now all of it was suddenly at risk because the two people who were supposed to protect me had taken everything. I walked out that morning without a word. They were in the kitchen, having coffee, laughing about something, like it was just any other day. I didn't even look at them. I just walked straight out the front door, down the street, heart pounding in my chest, like it was going to explode. I went to my best friend's house. Her parents, honestly, they're saints. I didn't even tell them the whole story, just said I needed a place to crash for a couple of days. They didn't hesitate. They took me in, fed me, made up the guest room like I was family. That night, for the first time in what felt like forever, I slept without that knot of anxiety in my stomach. But I knew I couldn't hide forever. So I did something I had never done before. I reached out to other family members. Not close ones. My dad doesn't have siblings, but he does have cousins. One of them is Uncle Jake. I barely knew him. We'd exchanged hellos at a family gathering years ago, and that was about it. But I was desperate. I messaged him on Facebook, poured everything out, every detail. And then I turned off my phone and cried myself to sleep again. I didn't expect a reply. Why would I? But when I woke up the next morning, there it was, a message from Uncle Jake. Just 5 words. Call me. I'll take care of this. I didn't wait. My hands were shaking as I dialed his number. I stepped outside my friend's house, pacing nervously on the front porch. He picked up on the first ring. His voice was calm, strong, but serious. Tell me everything. From the beginning. And I did. I spilled it all. My parents using my college fund to buy Sarah a house. How they laughed when I threatened to sue. How I had nowhere else to go. I could barely breathe. I was talking so fast, tripping over my words, afraid I'd forget something important. Uncle Jake didn't interrupt. He didn't tell me to slow down or accuse me of exaggerating. He just listened. When I finally stopped, there was a long silence. My chest tightened. I thought maybe I'd said too much. Maybe I sounded ungrateful or dramatic. But then he said something I'll never forget. This isn't right. Don't worry, kid. I'll handle this. He didn't go into detail about what handling it meant. He just told me to stay put, stay safe, and not contact my parents again until he said it was okay. I nodded, even though part of me still wanted to scream at them, to confront them face to face, and make them feel the pain I was carrying. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. That afternoon, my phone started blowing up. Missed calls, texts, notifications nonstop. My parents. At first I ignored everything, but curiosity got the better of me and I finally looked. Their tone had changed completely. The texts were no longer dismissive. Now they were panicked. We need to talk. Call us back immediately. What did you do? Your uncle is involved now. You don't know what you've started. I didn't know what Uncle Jake had done. Not yet. But one thing was clear, they weren't laughing anymore. That evening, he called me back. Calm as ever. Like this was just another Tuesday. I spoke to the executor of your grandparents' will, he said. Family friend of mine. Everything you told me checks out. Your parents had no legal right to use that money for anything other than your education. There was a pause. They messed up. Big time. And we're going to hold them accountable. I didn't know what to say. I think I mumbled something like, thank you, but it felt like nothing I could say would ever be enough. He told me not to worry about the legal side, that he'd handle it, that my job was to stay focused on school and keep my head down. Later that night, I overheard my best friend's mom whispering on the phone with one of my extended relatives. I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose, I was just walking by the living room and caught pieces of her hushed conversation. Did you hear Jake's bringing in a lawyer? No, it's serious. He's not letting it go. Hearing that sent a jolt through me. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. This was no longer just a family drama, it was turning into something real, legal, public. I sat on the edge of the couch numb while my friend handed me a bowl of popcorn and said quietly, "Your uncle sounds like a badass." She smiled. "You're lucky to have him. And you know what?" She was right. For the first time in my life, someone was fighting for me. By the next morning, everything had shifted. My parents must have realized how serious this was getting because their messages became frantic. I woke up to a new batch of texts that practically begged me to talk. "Please, let's talk. We can fix this as a family. You don't have to drag Uncle Jake into this. We'll figure out your tuition, we promise." But even then, they were only willing to fix it on their terms. They still refused to ask Sarah for the money back. They were trying to paint me as the unreasonable one, as if I was being dramatic for wanting what was legally and rightfully mine. That was it. The last straw. I called them for the first time since I'd left. My mom picked up instantly, like she'd been holding the phone waiting for it to ring. Her voice was soft, performative. "Oh, honey, we've been so worried about you. Let's just fix this, okay?" I kept my voice as calm as I could, though everything inside me was boiling. "You want to fix this? Then give me the money back. The whole thing. It's mine." That's when my dad's voice cut in harsh, defensive. "You're being selfish. Do you know how much stress this is causing Sarah? She doesn't deserve this." Something inside me cracked. "What about me?" I snapped. "Do I deserve this? Grandma and Grandpa left that money for my education, not for Sarah's house." There was silence on the line for a moment. And then my mom switched tactics. That manipulative, sugary, sweet voice she always used when she wanted something. "We just thought you'd understand, sweetheart. Family helps family," I laughed, bitter, tired. "Did you think of me as family when you stole from me? Because it sure doesn't feel like it." And then I hung up. My hands were shaking. My throat was tight. I knew the call wouldn't change anything, but I finally felt like I'd stood up for myself. Uncle Jake kept checking in, updating me little by little. He reassured me not to stress. "They dug this hole themselves," he said. "Now they're going to have to live in it." That's when he offered something I didn't expect, a place of my own. I'd been staying at my best friend's house for days now. Her family had been amazing, but I couldn't help but feel like I was overstaying my welcome. I mentioned it to Uncle Jake, and just 2 days later he had something lined up. It was a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it felt like freedom. He'd already explained the situation to the roommate, a girl a couple years older than me named Ashley. She was kind, quiet, and respectful. She didn't pry, didn't push, just helped me settle in and made space for me to breathe. When Uncle Jake handed me the keys, he looked me in the eye and said, "You're going to be okay. I promise." And for the first time in weeks, I actually believed him. I didn't hear from my parents for a while after that. Things went quiet. Too quiet. Uncle Jake warned me they were probably regrouping, trying to figure out their next move. "Don't worry if they go silent," he said. "If they were that concerned, they wouldn't have laughed at you in the first place." He was right. I'd spent years feeling like I didn't matter in that house. Invisible. But now for once, I had someone standing behind me. The first few nights in my new place were strange. I was finally out. Free, but it didn't feel real yet. Ashley and I weren't close, at least not then. She worked full-time and mostly kept to herself, which was perfect, honestly. I needed space. Still, the silence at night, it was heavy. All I could hear was my parents' voices in my head. "You're selfish. Sarah is crushed. You're ruining the family." It didn't matter how justified I knew I was. Those words echoed like a broken record. On the third night, Uncle Jake called again. "We've set up mediation," he said. "It's a formality, but we'll see if they come to their senses before we go to court." I asked him what that meant, and he explained that our lawyer was giving my parents one last chance to settle quietly. No loopholes, no gray areas. The will was clear. The money was for my education, and they had no right to touch it. For some reason, that made me feel sad. I know it probably doesn't make sense. They stole from me, lied to me, laughed in my face, and now that it was all blowing up, a part of me still wanted them to care. Not about the lawsuit. About me. But I didn't say any of that to Uncle Jake. I didn't want to sound weak. That night I got another message from my mom. This time it wasn't angry. It was guilt. "We're really sorry for how things turned out. You know we love you, right? We were just trying to help Sarah. She's struggling, and as parents we couldn't ignore that." Then my dad followed up. "You don't understand how hard this is for Sarah. She's crushed. You're ruining her dream over a misunderstanding." I stared at those messages for a long time, jaw clenched. They were still trying to make me the villain. As if I had broken the family. As if I was destroying Sarah's future when they were the ones who stole mine. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because if I did, I might have said something I'd regret. And I wasn't giving them that satisfaction. The next morning was our first mediation session. It was virtual. Just me, Uncle Jake, our lawyer, and my parents with their attorney on the screen. I didn't have to say much. The lawyer spoke for me, but seeing their faces after all this time was surreal. They looked exhausted. My mom's face was pale, drained. My dad kept rubbing his forehead like the stress had finally caught up to him. Neither of them could look directly at me. They were just there, smaller than I remembered. Their lawyer tried to soften the blow. He talked about how they acted in good faith, how they believed they were helping the family as a whole. But our lawyer didn't let that slide. He pulled up the will word for word, showed that it clearly stated the money was for my education, only my education. No ambiguity, no exceptions. When I finally did speak, I kept it simple. "I want the money back, that's it." My mom's eyes welled up. "We can pay for your tuition ourselves. Why won't you just let us fix this?" I clenched my hands under the table. "Because I don't trust you. You already took the money once. What's stopping you from doing it again?" There was nothing they could say to that. And they knew it. After the session, Uncle Jake asked me how I was holding up. I told him the truth. Seeing my parents like that messed with my head. "They're not sorry for what they did," I said. "They're sorry they got caught." He sighed. "That's probably true. But don't let it get to you. You're doing the right thing. You deserve that money." I nodded, but the guilt still clung to me like a film I couldn't wash off. Later that day, Sarah reached out. I hadn't expected it. I saw her name pop up in my DMs and braced for the worst. Accusations, guilt-tripping, blame. But instead, her message was surprising. "Hey, I just found out what Mom and Dad did. I'm really sorry. I had no idea they took your college fund. I thought they were helping me out with their savings or something. I'm not mad at you, I promise. Just wanted you to know." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back slowly, "Thanks for saying that. It means a lot." I didn't know what she was feeling. Guilt, shock. Maybe just confusion. But at least now I knew she didn't hate me. And truthfully, I didn't hate her either. She wasn't the one who stole the money. She was just caught in the middle of a mess she hadn't asked for. Uncle Jake called that evening with another update. "We've got another mediation session coming up," he said. "They're trying to stall now, hoping you'll cave and take their deal." "What kind of deal?" I asked. "They want to promise they'll cover your tuition. In exchange, you drop everything." I felt a bitter smile curl at my mouth. "Of course. They're banking on you feeling guilty," Uncle Jake said. "Don't let them win." That night, I couldn't sleep. I found myself scrolling through old photos, birthdays, holidays, random visits with my grandparents. Pictures of me with them when I was small, all toothy grins and shy hugs. They were always proud of me. Always supportive. Always telling me I'd do great things. I remembered my grandma's voice so clearly. "You're going to do amazing things, sweetheart." They believed in me. They saved for me. And I owed it to them and to myself not to let my parents erase that. The second mediation came fast. This time I wasn't nervous. I wasn't sad. I just felt focused. My parents could cry, beg, or manipulate. I wasn't backing down. This was my future. They looked more worn down than before. Their lawyer tried again to make their case, but you could see it in their faces they knew. They were losing. My mom cried early into the session. "We just thought we were helping the family," she sniffled, dabbing her eyes. "Why can't you see that I didn't flinch? You weren't helping the family. You were helping Sarah. At my expense." My dad leaned forward, trying a different approach. "Look, kid, we made a mistake. We get that. But do you really need to ruin your sister's life over this?" And that was it. "Ruin her life," I said, my voice sharp. "I'm not the one who decided to take the money. That was your choice. Don't put this on me." Our lawyer stepped in before they could reply. I barely listened after that. I was tired. So tired of hearing their justifications, their excuses. For weeks they'd painted me as some villain for demanding what was rightfully mine. But I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. That night, Sarah messaged me again. The tone had shifted. "Look, I know Mom and Dad messed up. But do you really have to take this so far? They're trying to fix things. They're panicking because of Uncle Jake. Can't you just let them pay for college instead of suing them? I never asked for this, you know." It stung. She wasn't attacking me, not directly. But it was clear she wanted me to let it go. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, "Sarah, I'm sorry you're in the middle of this. But this isn't my fault. I'm not taking it too far. Mom and Dad crossed a line and they need to fix it. All I'm asking for is the money they took." She read it but didn't reply. I guess she didn't know what else to say. The next day, Uncle Jake called again. "The paperwork's being filed," he said. "They're running out of time." "What happens next?" I asked. "They can either settle out of court and return the full amount, or they lose in court and pay even more." I let that sink in. For so long, my parents had controlled everything. The rules, the money, the narrative. Now, for once, the consequences were theirs. A few days later, another message came in. From my mom. I hadn't blocked her. Maybe I should have, but some part of me still clung to that faint, painful hope that maybe they'd finally understand. But that message crushed what was left. "We're begging you. Please call off Uncle Jake. We can't take this anymore. Sarah is devastated. We're falling apart as a family. You're destroying us." I read it twice. They were still trying to guilt me, as if I had broken something. As if I hadn't spent my entire life being the invisible one, the afterthought. As if I was the wrecking ball, not the one trying to rebuild. Destroying the family. What family? I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshotted it and sent it straight to Uncle Jake. He called me right away. "Don't reply to that," he said, firm and clear. "They're trying to manipulate you again. Stay focused. You're doing the right thing." Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table with Ashley, my roommate, sharing some instant ramen. She noticed I was quieter than usual and asked what was going on. So I told her about the message, about how torn up I felt inside even though I knew I was right. She looked at me like I'd just said something obvious. "Honestly, you're stronger than I'd be," she said. "If my parents did that, I'd probably crumble. But you stood up for yourself, and they can't handle that." I didn't say anything for a second. I just let her words sit in the air. For so long I had felt weak, helpless, but maybe, just maybe, this was what strength looked like. About a week later, we had our final mediation session. I was ready. Our lawyer had told me in advance my parents' attorney was pressuring them to settle. Taking this to court would make things even worse for them. When the call started, their faces said everything. Defeat. My dad didn't say a word the whole time. My mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Her shoulders slumped and she just looked small. Their lawyer did the talking. They would return the full amount of the college fund in exchange for us dropping the lawsuit. That was it. I thought I'd feel victorious, maybe even happy. But all I felt was tired. They'd fought me every step of the way. Tried to shame me, gaslight me, guilt me. And now that they had no other choice, they were finally giving in. Not because they cared about doing the right thing, but because they had no other option. When the call ended, Uncle Jake smiled, clapped once like we'd just finished a big project. "Well," he said, "that's that. They're going to wire the money back." I sat there in stunned silence. It took me a second to process. "It's over," I finally said. "Almost," he replied. "They still need to finalize everything. But you did it. You stood your ground, and you won. That night, I got another message from Sarah. Shorter this time. Blunt. I heard Mom and Dad gave in. I don't know what to say. I hope you're happy. I guess it's over now. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't happy. Not exactly. Relieved, maybe. But the kind of relief that feels like collapsing after holding up a roof for too long. I just wanted to move forward, to leave this whole mess behind. In the days that followed, the money was transferred back. Uncle Jake confirmed every step with the lawyer. There were no tricks, no delays. Just like that, it was done. The gift my grandparents had left for me, something they'd worked their whole lives to save, was finally back where it belonged. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. About 2 days later, Sarah called. I'd been expecting it, kind of. She'd sent a few passive-aggressive texts before, but this time she actually wanted to talk, like a person. I stared at her name on the screen for a long time before answering. When I picked up, her voice was quiet, calm, maybe even a little broken. Hey, she said. I just wanted to talk to you. I didn't say anything at first. I was bracing for more guilt trips, but she kept going. Mom and Dad told me everything. They finally admitted it. What happened with the money? I know you probably hate me, and I don't blame you. I don't even know what to say. Her voice cracked, and for the first time I really heard it. How tangled she was in all this. I took a deep breath. Sarah, I don't hate you, I said. You didn't steal the money. They did. There was a pause. Then she sighed. But I still accepted it. I was so focused on getting the house. I didn't even stop to ask where the money came from. That's on me. I should have asked. I was caught off guard. I hadn't expected her to take responsibility. Not really. And for once it felt like she saw it. Really saw what happened. I'm not mad at you, I said. I just wish you understood why I had to do this. That money, it was supposed to be for my future. I couldn't let them take that. She was quiet for a while. Then finally she said, I get it now. I do. I just wish they'd been honest from the start. It's not fair that you had to go through all this, I swallowed hard. Those words, not fair, hit harder than I expected. For so long, I'd been the one in the shadow. The second choice, the backup plan. Hearing her say it out loud, it felt like something cracked open. We ended the call on neutral ground. Not quite siblings, not yet, but maybe someday. As I hung up, she left me with one last thing. I hope you do something amazing with that money. Grandma and Grandpa would be proud of you. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just whispered, thank you. After the money was finally returned, my parents disappeared from my life. No more texts, no more calls, just silence. It was almost eerie at first, but mostly it was a relief. I didn't expect them to apologize, not really. And I definitely didn't expect them to change. I think deep down, they still believed they did the right thing. That helping Sarah was more important than honoring the last wishes of the people who trusted them. And maybe that's the hardest part, knowing they'll never see what they did as wrong. Uncle Jake told me my dad had reached out to him. He tried to spin the whole thing, claiming it had all been a misunderstanding, that they were just trying to make things right. Uncle Jake's reply. You had your chance to make it right before we got involved. You didn't take it. I smiled when he told me that. Because honestly, if there's one person who never wavered through all of this, it was him. He stood beside me when I had no one else. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. A week after everything was finalized, I got an email that changed everything again. I was sitting on the living room couch with Ashley watching reruns of some trashy reality show and eating cold pizza when my phone buzzed. The subject line jumped out at me instantly. Congratulations. Full scholarship award, my top choice college. Full ride. Everything covered. I gasped so loudly that Ashley nearly choked on her soda. What happened? She asked, eyes wide. I handed her the phone with shaking hands. Full scholarship, I whispered. Top school. I don't even have to touch the college fund. She screamed and jumped up from the couch. Pizza party, she declared, running to the kitchen for more snacks. It wasn't anything extravagant. Just frozen pizza and cheap soda. but it felt perfect. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt free. Like the future I'd worked so hard for was finally mine again. Later that night, I texted Uncle Jake to tell him the news. He replied within seconds. "Proud of you, kid. I knew you'd make it." And then a moment later, he sent another message. "Grandma and Grandpa would be over the moon. They always said you'd do great things." I stared at that message for a long time. My eyes welled up with tears, and I didn't even try to fight them. Because he was right. I'd spent so long fighting not just for the money, but for my right to dream, to be seen, to be treated as someone who mattered. My grandparents believed in me enough to save that money, and in the end, I didn't let them down. I didn't let me down. And even though my parents never truly saw me, someone did. Uncle Jake did, Ashley did, my best friend and her family did. Even Sarah eventually did. That's enough. There are still moments when I think about my parents, about the what-ifs. What if they had done the right thing from the beginning? What if they had chosen to support both their daughters instead of just one? But I've learned not to dwell there. Their choices are theirs, and so are the consequences. Mine led me here, to my own apartment, to a scholarship, to a future that's no longer built on someone else's decisions, but my own. I don't know what comes next, but for once I'm not afraid. I'm ready.